Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 26 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, March 13th, and
Can you see my sweatshirt, Whitey?
yeah, you're distracting me. I'm trying to do an open here, and you're.
I want to make sure our audience can see it.
Yeah, Selection Sunday today. We'll get to that in a minute. Indiana gets to play one of those play-in games, which is what all the truly elite programs get to do.
Yeah, like UCLA last year. That's okay.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. We might even maybe we should start the show. We're going to talk about we had one last local boys basketball team left in the area. Teutopolis played in a super-sectional Monday night. We'll talk about that. We got all state and all conference basketball stuff to talk about. Right, just this evening, right before we were getting ready to record, we heard word that Tom Brady has unretired.
Wait, you didn't do our opening. Is this our 30th show? What is this?
No, I said it's episode 26.
Oh, okay.
I did get.
I was too busy.
There was some guy going like that, and he wasn't.
Well, you're still wearing that. You're still wearing that A for UAB on your shirt.
So. Is that what that is? You know what I get a lot when I wear the Braves hats is people thinking that they're Alabama hats, and
there you go.
It's tough for me to not correct them because I don't want anyone to think that I'm some sort of an Alabama football fan. But most of the time, I just let it go.
Bandwagon.
Tom Brady coming out of retirement. The Major League Baseball lockout lasted longer than Tom Brady's retirement did.
Yes, it did.
And honestly, I don't know. Probably just us talking about him has given him the attention that he realized that he still needs. So,
well, let's start with the Super.
Let's start with the Super. T-Town played Nashville in the Super-Sectional down at Carbondale Monday night. And it was, it wasn't pretty. Nashville got them 44-18. That was the final score, I believe. And
and I watched it. I was watching a Facebook stream, which was probably better than NFHS's stream. I did hear nothing but bad things about it.
I watched the NFHS stream. The stream quality.
Did they have announcers?
They were kids. I think they were college students probably. They got most of the T-Town names right. They were getting Nieberge right. Caleb Seimer was pretty big minutes early on in the game. But
hey, that's just a trip down to the scorers table before the game and ask. I've learned that.
Yeah, and that's just they're kids. I'm sure they're learning, but that's if you're going to be saying the names, then figure out how they're pronounced ahead of time. Especially if you know that team's audience is going to be listening. Sometimes if we're doing an Effingham football game and we run into a name on a kid from Lincoln or something, we'll try to get it figured out. But if we don't get it figured out, we figure we're not getting too many listeners in Lincoln anyway.
Probably not.
But yeah, it's nice to be able to watch. The NFHS stuff does occasionally leave a little bit to be desired in terms of the quality of the video, and especially for me the usability of their streaming player. But for the bargain basement price of $12 a month, I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I think we're going to get that for a couple of the for members of the seating committee for our Christmas tournament next year to actually see some of these schools.
Yeah, it's a useful tool in a lot of ways. I have honestly, some schools just have the same camera equipment, but they just stream it over their YouTube channel, and I don't have to pay anything for that. I watched a lot of Cumberland girls games this year to see a friend of mine coach, and didn't have to pay a dime for it, but I did get $48 invested in NFHS just so I could, see some of the Neoga games that I wasn't able to get to or see. A lot of schools use it. It's
and you can go back and watch games after the fact. It's not as much watching live, and that's the thing with our committee. We can go back and watch some games. So we'll talk briefly. The Super game. A good friend of mine from Teutopolis was really upset after the game, and it's a person that knows basketball. It's not like Bears fans that just like yell about stuff. I mean, this person was knowledgeable, and after the state tournament, his outlook changed a little bit on the game. Nashville went on to be the state champ. Um, Pat or yeah, Patrick Weathers, the new coach, played for his dad back in the day and had been on the bench under Wayne Harry for a few years, helped with his dad too when he was at Nashville. I'll tell you what, this is almost sacrilegious to say. Defensively, they may be better than they were under Wayne Harry. And I know that's hard to say. But you know, they pose so many problems. They're so disciplined. Their motto is win ugly. And let's be honest, the Shoes had a lot of looks in that first quarter. They didn't score, got down 10. You know, you're only down 10-0 and have probably played offensively the worst quarter maybe they ever had played. And they just, I don't know if it's, you know, that's such a big atmosphere. The background's different, the shooting, but you know, when you always hear that, it always seems like the team that wins never complains about the shooting background. and I'm not saying that was a reason, but they just, T-Town came out, turned it over. I think its first 3 possessions. They had 3 turnovers before they got a shot, and they weren't really forced stifling defense turnovers. They were just kind of, I don't want to say deer in headlight, but they looked uneasy for most of that first quarter. They really did. They missed shots they don't normally miss. And I'm not saying, oh, so-and-so had a wide open 3. I mean, there were guys getting good looks from inside 5 feet and sometimes not drawing iron, you know, or off the backboard. And it was just, I think they were just tightly strung, tightly wound. And I felt like they should have gone into that game with we don't have anything to lose. You know, this is all on you. You're supposed to win type of approach.
Well,
and you know, just like when FEM played Alney, you know, FEM came out just loose and just played well. And the Shoes just came out tight. Then they had a nice second quarter, outscored them 7-6, you know, but then you're down 16-7 at the half, then only scored 1 in the third quarter. And it was just, Nashville's a really, really strong group. And they showed it. I mean, you got to give the props to them. So, you know, tough game, good end of the season. We talked beginning of the year, hey, we think we'll have boys and girls teams go deep. Well, we had one get to the Final Four, bring home hardware. We had one get to a super. We had various others, you know, T-Town girls, St. Anthony girls, both played in sectionals. You know, Neoga knocked off a good Altamont team in the regional. St. Anthony girls knocked off a good Calvin Herrick Beecher City team in the regional. You know, on the boys' side, South Central won a regional, kind of surprise. Also a little bit of a surprise, not big surprise, but a little bit, you know. So there was a good Altamont team getting knocked off and a good North Clay team getting knocked off. A good Windsor Stew Straws team getting knocked off. You still had St. Anthony get to along with T-Town, and then they just kind of had the last 3.5 minutes they would like to forget.
Yeah.
So the stage was set maybe to have the best postseason representation we've had. I mean, very possibly could have had 2 teams of state, really. I mean, if the stars would have lined up a little differently, but didn't, you know, so.
And stars lining up is a big thing. I mean, if this season's taught me anything, it's that, you know, making a deep run is, you know, obviously you got to have the players and the talent, you got to have the coaching, but you also just got to get a break here or there. And
you got to have luck. Kenny Crawford always told me, Mike, you got to get lucky.
Yeah.
And that happens. I mean, you know, and I'll go back to Kenny's last season as a coach. He beats Newton by 1, maybe 2 in a regional, goes to a sectional, beats Vandalia in overtime with Eric Hobby, one of the best athletes I've ever seen on the floor. beats St. Anthony at the buzzer, goes to a super and does okay. Didn't really play well, but beat Central A&M by, I think, 10. Upsets Nashville in the first round of state. This is back when you had 2 classes and 8 teams. Gets beat in double overtime in the semi. Kenny ran the gauntlet there. He had Newton, Vandalia, and St. Anthony, 3 games decided by, less than 8 points, and one of them was overtime, and they got the breaks when they needed them. And you've got to do that in the postseason. Could have happened a lot of ways. Nashville would have been a very tough out for T-Town in the Super, unless T-Town come out and shot the ball really well when they got opportunities. That's what you had to do. Nashville's going to limit your opportunities and make you rush things without making you rush.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask, is just watching the game now, I am not as good at spotting these things as a person who has coached, and has prepared teams to face different defenses. But to me, it didn't seem like Nashville was doing anything unorthodox. That's just good fundamental defense. I mean, just being big and in your face.
Outstanding man-to-man, their rotation, their communication on the floor, flawless. And I'll tell you, their first game at state, they played in DePaul Prep, and a lot of people from the northern part of the state had DePaul Prep penciled in to be the 2A state champ. A lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And Nashville won that game 31-28 in double overtime. It was double overtime.
Yeah, it was double overtime, because I remember how low scoring it was.
Well, and when you look at that, they played a whole extra quarter and really didn't score many more points than Teutopolis did. And Teutopolis probably will tell you we played as, offensively as bad a game as we've played. Just, missed the opportunities they had.
31-24, by the way. And then
31-24.
And then won
they
the
scored
championship
6 more
game.
points in an extra quarter.
And won the championship game 32-31 over Monticello.
And had a blocked shot to end that game against Monticello. And the Shoes played both Monticello and Nashville. I saw the Monticello game, most of it. I think I saw the second half because it started earlier. Monticello was a good team, but there weren't kids on the floor that stood out to me. But they were a solid team. T-Town played pretty good, especially in the second half that night. And they got a win.
My understanding was that Nashville, in the semifinal game up at Champaign, they didn't sub either. They played the same guys,
5 kids
for 40 minutes of basketball. And it looks to me like they had a 6th guy come in briefly.
How many of those kids are seniors, Whitey? Do you see that on a roster anywhere?
Well, I can do some looking here real quick.
Since you're the IT specialist of the show.
Yeah, since I know how to.
I'd have to call Coach Weathers, and I've already called one coach tonight to get information.
Nashville's starting lineup was a junior, a senior, a senior, a senior. Looks like 4 seniors and a junior.
So here's one thing. We're going to see what Nashville's made out of, because they played 5 kids in the semifinal game that went double overtime, and 4 of them are seniors.
Kind of reminds you of you just mentioned T-Town run and Ken Crawford's last year. That was a team that went 5
in 07. He didn't sub much that year.
5 seniors and a couple other guys, and that was pretty much it.
2 sophomores actually played off the bench, and we did everything in our power to wear those kids down and make them sub. And they did a little, but not much.
Yeah, you couldn't. It's hard to wear down a Jason Rundy. It's hard to. It's hard to.
Don't. If he listens now, I'll never hear the end of that, because Jason's on our Christmas tournament.
Sometimes.
No, they were a really good group. I mean, they really were. 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 I mean, they really were I had a blast facing them. And, when we had that blizzard a couple of weeks ago, I watched 2 of those 3 games that year against them. And
So that's
they were good. They were a good team.
That's it for, well, not just local basketball, but it's all done. State tournaments have been decided.
Nashville won 1A Yorkville Christian. I told you a couple of weeks ago I'd take them and give you the field, and they cruised. I don't understand how a 1A school with 60 kids, is that right? I think they had 60. 65,
yeah,
64. Have a D1 kid going to Duke and another kid that's really, really good.
The high school 64, their basketball roster's looks to be a full 15 on it. So
yeah,
that's interesting. But that's
interesting.
That's why people sometimes complain about certain
right
private schools.
Well, Sacred Heart Griffin won the 3A, former participant in our Christmas tournament. Coach, is it Collins? Tim Collins, the head coach? It's Tim something.
You got me working overtime here.
I know. Well, you made that strange post on our Facebook page about
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen.
No relation.
Good guy. I was told he was brought in to get the athletes to play basketball and bring their basketball program up to par with their football program. And he's been there now 4 years, and I believe he's accomplished his goal.
Yeah, you're right. 4 years, went 33-3 this year. So
yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, it's and we were talking about this a little bit, but you didn't have any Chicago Public League teams win.
Right. Simeon got beat. Simeon lost twice. And I was told they didn't request to be bumped up to 4A because they knew they weren't going to be really, really strong. And then in 4A, your championship was Glenbard West against Whitney Young, AJ Casey, who's going to Miami. I think there was 9 D1 players in those starting lineups between the 2 teams. They had beaten Whitney Young late in the season, bad, blew them out. And I follow enough stuff on Twitter, so primarily for the Christmas tournament, but of the Chicagoland stuff. And they're out for revenge. Wait till we see you downstate. And Glenbard spanked them decently in the championship game, 18 or 20. I think they ended up beating them by as well.
22. Yeah,
22. Glenbard's big kids going to Gonzaga, 6'11" lefty. I don't think either team had a starter under 6'5". And Glenbard was so long and athletic. I read a lot of people chiming in saying they may be one of the best state champion teams maybe ever. They're putting them in pretty high, on a pretty high shelf. And, it's hard to argue, but, you always, looking at decades and but that's a pretty good group. And it's the first time 06 when Derrick Rose won state. Chicago Public League has won 1 state title ever since.
It sounds like
that string is now over.
It sounds like in terms of the event itself, it sounded like getting back at the University of Illinois people enjoyed it. I don't think the basketball was unfortunately not just, there weren't a ton of really good.
The first day you had 3 blowouts, and then the Nashville DePaul game was very low scoring. So people I saw some people weren't very happy with that. On the championship day, incredible. I mean, you had 4 great games. Sacred Heart Griffin won. A kid threw one in at the buzzer in the second overtime that he lost the dribble, went out and picked it up. He was number 5 on SportsCenter's top 10 last night and threw it in. Nashville blocked the shot to win their game. So I heard a lot of great things. One of the biggest negatives, I guess, yesterday the first game started at 11 and they weren't going to open the doors till 10:30 because they had to get the 3-point finalist people out of the building. And I was seeing a lot on Twitter of people standing outside, estimating 1,000 or more people still outside at 10:50, and it's like 19 degrees, and they weren't very happy.
Yeah, you got to.
So I think there's some things they got to work out. But Peoria, Champaign's a better place, I think, to watch the game. It means more, I think, for kids to be on the floor. Peoria had the experience that was in the same building. As a coach, Peoria was hard to beat because I would have to go up early for the IBCA All-State Selection Committee on Thursday and check into my hotel. And I would come home Saturday, and that's the next time I touched my car keys. I could walk to the arena, 2 blocks, Pierre Marquette, where a lot of teams were, coaches there. The Hoops Pizza bar place was right there where a lot of coaches would be. Walked everywhere we went. Champaign, you don't have that luxury.
No.
And so I don't know. I'll have to hear from some coaches what they thought of it. But yeah, I think for a venue to play in, it's hard to beat, especially with the momentum the University of Illinois basketball.
Right. That's just the thing. I think probably generation to generation, you're just nothing against Bradley, but you're not gonna. Kids don't grow up dreaming of playing on the floor that Bradley plays on.
Hey, and they could have bumped into Kofi Coburn on Saturday. He didn't have anything to do.
Yeah, well,
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, he hopefully I'm not real optimistic about him being real busy after the first week of the tournament either. The way things
Davis came out today and said he's picking Chattanooga. He said that during the show.
Yeah, Chattanooga's a tough matchup, and it doesn't really get any easier. You win that one, you're probably playing Houston, or possible UAB, which is
Kelvin Sampson. He may have like a couple recruits between now and next week.
I don't know. I kind of just watching the Big Ten tournament. I'm not really excited about any Big Ten teams making deep runs right now.
I'm kind of the opposite with that one. I think, for one, gosh, can Iowa shoot the basketball? Did you see Iowa play who was it, Northwestern? They scored 126 points.
I don't know. I didn't.
Oh, yeah, it was Northwestern. They beat like 126-80. And Iowa's made like 19 threes. They couldn't miss. And they put a lot of pressure on. The Indiana game, Bohannon banking in a 3 for the win. It is what it is. Those things happen. But I was really impressed with them for not having a dominant big man inside. That's where I think Iowa gets in trouble in the tournament if they run into someone with a good big man. Because Trace Jackson Davis had 30-some on him. Kofi kind of had his way with them. That's their weakness. Purdue, I think, was like, hey, if we win it, great. If not, we're focused. If Ivy gets healthy, I think he's a little banged up. Illinois, it's just they can't have that game where they get out-toughed. Brad Underwood always says we got out-toughed.
Yeah, but he's had to give that press conference like a half dozen times this year.
3 or 4 times this year. And they weren't healthy. It was Grandison wasn't there. And
Grandison wasn't there. I mean, I don't know.
So,
I don't know how many. I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, he's an option. He's a guy that you at least have to think about.
Right. And he's a decent big player. Michigan State, I don't know. Izzo's struggling this year. They're just, I don't expect a deep run out of them. Wisconsin, I think they got a pretty favorable draw.
They did.
And they're playing in Milwaukee, aren't they?
I didn't.
I thought they were.
They look close.
Or at least their first 2 games if they play those. Michigan, I don't understand being seeded as high as they were. I wasn't fond of that. Indiana's Rutgers, I'll tell you what.
Well,
they're
Rutgers
good.
Dangerous. Yeah, Rutgers.
They're good. And they're in a play-in game. Rutgers and Indiana will both win their playing games.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you too much, mostly because I couldn't begin to tell you much about Notre Dame, who's that's who Rutgers plays, and then with Indiana, Wyoming. Yeah, I'm not.
Jeffrey's Mattoon native is a Wyoming Cowboy. He's
I
one of
don't-
their better 3-point shooters.
I just I find that the brand of basketball that's being played in the Big Ten right now, we can talk how competitive the league is and how many good teams there are, but they knock the crap out of each other. They play a certain way, and then they get in the NCAAs, and they're generally not allowed to get away with that crap.
Right. They get in foul trouble. They always get in foul trouble in the NCAA tournament. So it depends on who you got as crews. We'll see. I mean, there's so many people who can win it this year. Oh my gosh, the ton of different teams that can win it. So it'll be fun.
I'll just make a list.
You know what we'll have to do? We'll each fill out a bracket and we'll go head to head.
Yeah, sure.
Bracket.
That's fine. That's fine. I do pretty well at that stuff, generally speaking. Even when I don't necessarily. Some years I follow it more closely than others. So we'll see.
I usually don't. That's why I rely on the point spread bracket I get into. That, I like that.
You got me in that, and
I know.
I'm
we'll see.
Now. All right,
that hasn't come out yet.
Let's get to the rest of this, the high school
all right.
stuff we got.
We got one other thing to talk about before we get to the high school all area or all things.
Okay, do it.
I'll tell you the last night, the last ball Tom Brady threw for a touchdown sold at auction for $500,000, over $500,000.
I think if it just happened last night, I think you got.
It did. The auction was last night.
You got to be. I don't know.
You got to be suspicious. Today, Tom Brady comes out and says, "I'm coming out of retirement. I'm going to play again for Tampa Bay," and I think he had a deal cut with the seller of that ball, and he got like $100,000 off the top to hold off on his announcement.
I just think here's what I think. I think anybody that's willing to pay $500,000 for a piece of memorabilia like that, I don't feel bad for them really. I mostly think it's funny mostly, you know.
Well, it's like wasn't it McGuire's 70th ball went for $2 million? It wasn't long after that where that record was no longer on the books.
Although, you know, I'm sure that people, if they want to jump through enough hoops in their minds, they'll tell you, well, now Barry Bonds did this and this, and
I know.
You know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He had it, then Bonds broke through. I mean, based on what the record says in the books. So yeah, I don't know.
Plenty of people still probably I don't know, don't want either one of those records to count.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You want to ask for this next to them. But hey, at least there's going to be baseball to watch. You know, I'm glad that we got that straightened out.
I'm a little concerned. The Cardinals have signed 2 free agents this week, and I don't know who either one of them are.
Nobody's done much of anything so far. There was all this talk that it was going to be.
Your old shortstop got signed by the Cubs.
Oh my goodness, Andrelton Simmons.
Andrelton Simmons is a Cub.
You know, I love Andrelton Simmons, the way he plays on the field. I love his defense. There's a video out there. It's a 20-minute video of just him making plays for the Braves. And that stuff's fun. But yeah, he can't hit his way out of a wet paper bag. And
he's Ozzie Smith in his first 2 years.
And also any games they have to play in Toronto. I don't know if they play in Toronto this year or not, but he won't get to make those trips with them. We don't have to get into that. But yeah, that's a big thing that I guess there's Canadian laws still that if you don't have your COVID-19 vaccination, then they won't let you in. So
did you see where Kyrie Irving was able to watch the ACC tournament at the Barclays Center because he was a fan, not a participant?
Yeah, that's I know people things like that drive people crazy sometimes. But you know,
it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not going to get off on a tangent on it, but I certainly I don't have a ton of sympathy for athletes that put themselves in that position. I'll just put it that way.
Well, all right.
They get to make their statement, so that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk more about baseball. I just hope that I don't get somebody texting me saying, sorry to hear about Freddie Freeman signing with the Dodgers while we're recording this, because I don't want to
You have to use
share that moment with the world.
You may have to use the pause button on your mic.
Yeah, be some ugly crying going on there. All area, all state. Let's start with all Apollo, because I have that in front of me. Did you get the All Apollo boys?
I have all Apollo boys in front of me.
All right, that was the one.
And then I have IBCA boys. I want to do this because I've got to kind of sort through that email. So
all right, let's
first team.
Yeah.
Elijah Police. I think I'm reading that right. From Lincoln.
Lincoln, yeah.
Jackson Brown from Charleston. Ethan Harnick from Mount Zion. Bryce Friedrich from Taylorville, and Blake Walters from Mahomet Seymour. Second team, Peyton Cook of Lincoln, Carson Cuddy of Mount Zion, Sam Bradbury of Mattoon, William Applegate of Charleston, and Garrett Wolf of Effingham. That's first and second team boys.
Yeah, I think that's good for Garrett.
Yeah,
because really,
Garrett, and I'm happy for Sam Bradbury with what he went through in the middle of the season.
Well, I think both of those guys have that kind of angle. They think about it a little differently, because Bradbury's was more in season. But and we've talked about this before, and we don't have to belabor the point. People can just go back and listen to our other shows if they want to hear that. But Garrett, just to get on the floor early in the season, I think was showing a lot of toughness. And sometimes you could see it, in his game, that he was not 100%. And I don't know how he's feeling right now, but for him to put together a second team all conference season with the injuries that he sustained, in the off season, that's a good bounce back story. So
he's got a year to get healthy.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and I could, as far as the All Apollo girls, which I have in front of me, we might as well stay with the girls, right? Not a lot of surprises in terms of the first team, I don't think. Mallory Ramage from Mattoon and Chloe Froby from Lincoln, slam dunks there. Kayla Kerner from Mahomet Seymour. Denver Anderson from Mount Zion. Mount Zion had a tough year, but had a standout player. And Meredith Shafer from Effingham, which I think is well deserved for her. She had a great season. And then on the second team, you had Addison Tarr from Taylorville, Ivy Juarez from Mahomet Seymour, Faith Niebergy from Mattoon, Chloe Pruitt from Mattoon, and then another Effingham kid, Sawyer Altoff. So a couple of the seniors from this year's Effingham team getting into the All Apollo girls. And with Effingham, Meredith Shafer, I'm easy pick for me, trying to decide who else to put on there. It becomes a little tough, because there were nights, you can look at the scoring or you can look at intangibles, but really night in, night out, they had different kids kind of contributing in that secondary factor. And they had a nice year. And that's the kind of the sign of the nice years, when you can't really pick out who you won 20 some games, but you can't pick who your standouts were necessarily. So there are your Apollo teams. I don't know, where do we want to go next? I guess
why don't you do go to NTC?
Yep, NTC girls. We'll do NTC girls. First team, your MVP, not a real big surprise here. Grace Nelson from Altamont, Sydney Richards from Neoga, Gracie Heckert from Cowden-Herrick Beecher City, Riley Guy and Lucy Faraday from St. Anthony, and then Lainey Morrison from Cowden-Herrick Beecher City. So they do 6 on the team there. Second team was Brooklyn Garrett from South Central, Courtney Brummer out of Diedrich, Avery Faraday from Neoga, Maya Ballard from North Clay, Haley Campbell from Neoga, and Peyton Osteen from Altamont. And then they had 3 honorable mentions: Lexi Seabaugh from Brownstown St. Elmo, Lainey Webster from South Central, and Ella Kinkler from Windsor Stew Straws. So a total of 15 kids mentioned. And again, like I said, no, I don't think there's any big surprises on that first team. All those are well deserved. And a lot of those kids also we'll tease, spoiler alert, there's going to be some all-state recognition for them. So it was a good year for the NTC girls, and no real complaints from me as far as who got the recognition there. For the boys, your MVP from North Clay was Logan Fleener, and I think that validates a lot of the things that we have been saying on our show. We like Logan's game a lot, and I think him getting hurt in their last game of the season in the regional probably was big turning point for North Clay. So he got the MVP, and that makes us look smart, doesn't it? Means that other people feel the same way. Sam Vonderheide from Windsor Stew Straws, Kyle Stewart from St. Anthony, Noah Klimpel from Altamont, Craig Croy from St. Anthony, and Aiden Dodson from South Central. Then on the second team, you got Pacey McClure from Neoga, Austin Wittenberg from Windsor Stew Straws, Mason Robinson from Altamont, Bryce Booty from Diedrich, Jaden Robertson from CHBC, and Keenan Wilshire from South Central. And then they had two honorable mentions, Eric Coleman from Altamont and Spencer Johannes from South Central. So there's that. I don't know. Anything you feel you got to speak out on with the NTC?
No, I mean, that's a solid group, and you got a lot of those kids coming back.
Yep.
That's the big thing. I mean, there's a lot of kids coming back to the area, so that's pretty good. So you've got NTC, we've got Apollo, boys and girls. Why don't you do girls all state, and then I'll do boys all state. IBCA.
I will real quick, because we don't really we don't keep up with all the schools in these conferences, but I did want to mention real quick for Little Illini, you had a couple of Newton kids. Ava Kessler from Newton was a second teamer, and Amber Russell was an honorable mention. Ben Meinhardt and Evan Shafer from Newton were both first teamers on the boys side of the LIC, and Mason Shafer was an honorable mention. Then Cumberland had Gavin Hendricks on the second team for the Lincoln Prairie Conference. And the Cumberland girls got a couple of second teamers. They're two seniors, Sage Carr and Zoe Mitchell. So, good for them. Especially the Cumberland girls. I've mentioned it a time or two, but they won more than 20 games this year. Had a really nice season after a really extended time in a place that no coach wants to be, but they've dug out of that. So congrats to all of them. Yeah, let's go all state. IBCA first. You want me to do that?
Yeah, do what you do, IBCA.
I've got the girls.
I got the boys.
Okay. Again, no surprises here. Grace Nelson from Altamont was a 1A first teamer. Sydney Richards out of Neoga was a Class 1A second teamer. Gracie Heckert from CHBC. She was third team in Class 1A. Then you had Laney Morrison from CHBC make the special mention for Class 1A. In 2A, you had a couple of T-Town girls recognized. Caitlin Shoemaker got third team on the 2A IBCA All-State team, and Isabella Hardick. She was a special mention in Class 2A. So a total of six local girls mentioned in the IBCA 1 and 2A. Then you
boys IBCA, and I just got I got to thank Mac Thompson, Robinson's coach. I know Mac's on the committee. I was on the committee for 3 years. It's really an interesting deal. You've got, I don't know, 15 regions in the state. The IBCA splits you up into 20 regions. I forget exactly how many. And you've got 1 or 2 reps from each region. Luckily, we had like 3 or 4 reps. I don't know how we swung that, but we got more votes because we had more reps. But you start off by anyone you have to nominate as a first teamer. And, like you wouldn't say, oh, Mike Wilson, he's a senior, he's a good kid. No, I mean, you got to throw legitimate people on the board because so you get to speak about a minute about them, and then the committee votes. And then if you're not the top however many are first team, and then you go on, and then if you weren't, you stay on the board and you'll bring up some second teamers and you vote. So, and it's the whole state. I mean, I remember getting emails from coaches from way up northwest. Here's, Dustin White, he's 1,000-point scorer. He's been a 4-year starter. Well, if he's only scored 1,000 points, he's been a 4-year starter. I don't know if he's a first teamer, but there was a big emphasis on that, or hey, he's a really good kid, or and you don't know. It kind of irked me when people would send me the campaign emails for kids. I'd heard of kids. Those are kids, you'd talk to coaches. You knew coaches from different parts of the state. Hey, is this kid legit? Well, not this kid, I still remember him talking about Lucas O'Rear as a sophomore and saying, coach from McLeansboro, down south, we call Lucas, he's a bitch. That's how hard he plays. When he's a senior, he's gonna be a soul bitch.
Yeah, that's that's the thing. And we talked about NFHS earlier, and that's another thing that it helps with a little bit is like,
sure,
there used to be, if you saw tape on anybody from another part of the state, you were, you come across something pretty uncommon.
Back in the day, it was hard to get tape on people. Now you've got Huddle, now you've got NFHS. So yeah, you can see these, and you see more kids. And
still pretty unscientific though. Still pretty unscientific.
I mean, I'd see kids in the summer. We might play in the IBCA tournament, and I'd get to see kids from wherever. So you kind of have an idea, but it's you got to push, and if and we'd always set together with the coaches from the South. So we kind of created a voting block. And, it was Kurt Reed and Mike Cruz and me and Gary Shirley. I think Scott Bales was on the committee with us there his last year at Neoga, maybe. And, or he was at Sullivan. He was at Sullivan. And
that was his next
we kind of had a little block, and, you'd call BS sometimes in our group. Hey, this kid's not that good. And another thing. So, but first team, not really anyone we cover. I mean, he played a little bit in the area, was Jalen Quinn out of Tuscola.
Okay.
So I mentioned him. Third team 1A, Logan Fleener from Louisville North Clay. He made third team. And 1A special mention, we had Sam Vonderheide of Windsor Stew Straws, Noah Klemple from Altamont, and Kyle Stewart from St. Anthony.
Good.
So that's it. And they don't have, back in the day, we had more special and honorable mentions than they do now. The lists are a lot shorter. They really condensed them.
Yep. And I think that, I mean, fewer people get named, which it's nice to get named, but it does make it mean a little bit more for the kids. Cause yeah, it used to be the special mention list. I felt like it used to be a mile long.
You could get people on there. Yeah. You throw somebody on. If you on the committee wanted somebody on there, you can get them on
there. But that's, good company, for all those guys. And we've seen them, they're quality players.
2A, second teamer, and I'm only going to mention David Heiss from Knoxville, only because he played in our Christmas tournament. Nice player. Made our all tournament team. Third team for 2A, Caleb Seamer from Teutopolis. And 2A special mention was Evan Shafer from Newton. Okay. So, pretty nice. There's 4 kids right there who played in our Christmas tournament who made, first, second, third team or special mention.
You have to think St. Thomas more for the Heiss kid being part of that, because he was up to about like a few days before the tournament. We had no idea.
We had no idea who he was,
or who, and for that matter, where Knoxville, Illinois was.
We enjoyed each other so much. They're coming back, so that worked out well.
Good, that did.
And then you have what? Associated Press.
Yeah, I got the AP stuff here.
Okay.
Let me get to the right window. The girls. I don't know if we kind of talked about this already, but I don't think we did. The NTC was very well represented on the Associated Press. They do a 5-person first team and a 5-person second team, and then a pretty good list of honorable mentions. But Grace Nelson from Altamont, Sydney Richards from Neoga, and Riley no, wait a minute. Grace Nelson was the only first teamer. Grace Nelson was a first teamer. And then you had Richards, Guy, and Gracie Heckert from CHBC. Those
Right.
three were all on the second team. So you had that. And then Lucy Fearaday from St. Anthony
All right,
also made the
special honor
honorable
mention.
mention.
Okay.
Yep. So again, the NTC girls, and the thing is that although one of those mentioned Riley Guy graduates, but the other ones are all going to be back next year. So
I saw all of them, but the Richards girl play. So
yeah, and Sydney Richards is she's excellent. So it's a good group. For T-Town on the 2A honorable mention, they had a couple. Kaylee Nieberge and Caitlin Shoemaker were the two there. So a little difference in Caitlin Shoemaker got on the IBCA and Associated Press, but then you had Isabella Hardick on the IBCA, Nieberge for the AP special or honorable mention.
Okay.
So a little difference there. Boys Associated Press, all honorable mentions here. On the 1A, you had Aiden Dodson from South Central, Logan Fleener from North Clay, Kyle Stewart from St. Anthony, and Samuel Vonderhyde from Windsor Stew Straws. And then Caleb Seamer on the 2A honorable mention. So those are the five boys from our what we talk about. I didn't mention, like, Mallory Ramage was an IBCA.
That's it. Sure.
Yeah, from Mattoon. And I'm sure, I think Froby was on there as well.
I assume she was. Yeah.
So I didn't get into that, but the Apollo Conference girls, again, it was a gauntlet to play in. A lot of really solid individual athletes, and they were properly recognized once.
Our most affiliated conferences both were really, really strong on the girls' side, I think, this year. The boys' side were, they were. So it was good. We had good representation this year. Why do they need next year? We need to have the Whitey and Wilson. We'd be like the All Madden team.
Man, I'll tell you what, when I was at the Daily News, the thing I hated the most, but
The all area
was necessary, was doing an all area team, because it's great for the kids that you mentioned, but somebody gets left out and somebody gets mad, and
you're going to piss somebody off.
They generally would let you know about it.
Yeah.
And there's different philosophies too, like, do you give a little extra weight for kids that are in the city schools, because those are the people who are buying the paper and who are potentially advertising, things I didn't want to have to think about. Like, I just wanted to make a list.
Or do you pick a senior over a junior because he's a senior, and he'll do it next year? Well, you can't assume those things. It's hard. We have the debate with our Christmas tournament. Some people want to do an MVP. I'm not one of those people. I don't want to do an MVP because usually you have to, I guess, say that person is from the winning team, or, it's hard. And then some people, you have too many. Well, then how come my kid? Well, then you're wanting us to not have as many. And maybe your kid was the first one out, using a hot slogan from today. And so I don't know. It's never easy. Someone's always upset about it.
But I guess at the end of the day, it is a really nice thing for the ones who get mentioned, and that's what you're doing it for. It doesn't make any difference. It never made any difference to me, who the 15th person on the team was or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have any real skin in the game. But to them, it was a very nice deal to get in, and you like to be able to give them that, especially if it was a senior, that last bit of recognition. But just as the season wrapped up, that last bit of recognition for a job well done. So glad these things exist, and glad that somebody else besides me is doing it, and we can just talk about it. But that's pretty much. In terms of the
that wraps up our high school season. There's no use asking you your highlight. I know what your highlight was.
Sure.
Being able to broadcast the Neoga girls at the state tournament.
Yeah.
probably your favorite game was the super-sectional game.
Well, it had to be. It had to be. Although, I got to at the state tournament since they whisked the coaches and players off to an interview room. It did give me a chance to get Seth James on the microphone and talk to him, and that's something that I wasn't ever sure would the stars would align for that to happen. So he's a guy I think the world of. And
I heard both your interviews, and they were good. I mean, you guys good. And
we probably went on a little bit longer than the average listener wanted to, but that's you only had
the people from Neoga at that point listening anymore. So after so many minutes.
Well, and most of them might have been in Bloomington anyway.
Yeah.
So
that
was a highlight for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking back games I saw either as a fan or doing on the radio. Oh my. T-Town beating Bloomington Central Catholic when Brendan Niebury came walking out pregame in a boot. I was very impressed with that because my first blush impression was, because T-Town was struggling at that time. St. Anthony coming back the way they did in the fourth quarter against Carlisle. I mean, that was a one I'll remember. And probably North Clay's win over Altamont, doing that game with Matt on the radio, just because it was such a big win for North Clay at that time. And I'd seen Altamont beat Dietrich in a real good ball game. I saw St. Anthony beat Dietrich in a good ball, but maybe those three just kind of stand out of games I saw.
Yeah, if it weren't for the implications, I think with that super-sectional game between Neoga and Goreville, the actual probably best game I saw this year was another Neoga girls game, the championship of that NTC girls tournament when they went double overtime with Altamont. That was a game. That was just a fun game, and the best part of it to me, I mean, obviously Neoga won it. I was not there working. I was just there to see my hometown team play. But
you had Indians painted on your cheeks?
No. Oh. I sat, I sat with Mike Taylor, the Neoga AD, and we just watched it and talked about it, and pretty level-headed conversation about the game and how good it was and how we weren't sure who was going to be able to pull ahead. But the really nice thing about it was that there were people there, a lot of people there, and the atmosphere was fantastic. And that's just something we haven't been able to have, we hadn't been able to have for a while. And so I think that made it doubly good just to be like, man, I'm excited for this game and I'm going to go watch it. The year before we were privileged enough, if I was broadcast the game, I could go to it, but the average person couldn't just walk into a gym and see a game because of the rules that were in place. And so it was nice to just get back to being able to go to a game because you wanted to.
St. Anthony beating Champaign Centennial in the Christmas tournament, probably one of the, I felt like that Ohio State fan in the Bad Beats video for the SVP show. That one was, they just kept hanging around. And, Centennial won a regional. They were a 3A regional champ.
Yeah, they were good.
So, that one was.
Well, and we saw
that was one that was one of those I was like, wow. But having fans, huge. You miss that.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, it makes it fun for us if we're working the game, but also, for the kids playing, it's got to be a completely different feeling to be out there on the floor and have people going nuts, for Trista Moore to hit that 3-pointer in a super-sectional game. And it would be huge no matter what, but to know that like 500 of your classmates or people, your neighbors are in the stands and they all lose their minds at the same time. Like
you're trying to figure out why your ears are ringing.
So that's been great. And and it's been a fun season to cover. And now, gosh, they've been having baseball and softball practices for 2 weeks
Games
now.
start next week, don't they?
Yeah.
Am I not mistaken?
Yeah. I don't know what
Thought
kind
I
of
saw
plans
Justin Fleener had a tweet in so many days or something, I thought.
all I'm saying is that with the way the weather's been and things are warming back up and
Yeah.
fields are softening, there's going to be some outfields that are a little mushy right now. But
Yeah. Hey,
those uniforms will
you get a
wash.
play in if you get a play in March, you can live with some mushiness.
Yeah, I've been a part of a high school spring season where we didn't play a home game all year long, so because of wet conditions, and so you get in there and get as many games in as you can. And if you're playing your season opener at Charleston and there's snow flurries falling and it hurts to hit the ball, you still do it.
Yeah.
Because you only get so many chances at this, and
it is, and we'll probably have the softball coaches on first again is what we'll try to do.
Mhm.
And then we'll have the baseball coaches on. I mean, for now, I think that's what we'll do.
Yeah, those are the sports that we can speak the most.
We'll focus the most on. We've talked about having Matt Robinson maybe as a special correspondent pop in for a little bit because he'll see more
baseball games this year.
He'll see more baseball games than you and I combined.
I mean, I will be able to report to you very diligently on the Neoga Chiefs 10U softball team, but I don't know.
Will we have video with that, or just you're introspective?
We might be able to. I don't know how much. I don't know the caliber of play may not exactly get our average.
I've been to those. I don't think I ever was. Maybe Jessica was. I don't think Morgan started playing any travel ball until maybe 6th grade.
It's good. It's good for the stakes are low and everybody understands that. They just need to
Well, that's the key, as long as everyone understands. Oh, a couple of our guests were at the state tournament, Carl Redking and Bob Schlechty.
Yeah.
Both did state. Carl did the Nashville Monticello championship game, and Bob may have done one of the Glenbard West games. Who now was it, Barrington or Bolingbrook? They had an issue with drivers or they had no students. They offered no student transportation for their kids down there. They had almost no fans. It was like a fresh soft game.
Yeah, that's too bad, because that's
you're a 4A school and you can't work through those problems.
And that's the thing. That's another thing about the state tournament experience is like it's an experience for the players and the coaches, obviously, but man, the kids, they go and they have a great time, and sometimes a little, they'll sometimes
too much fun.
But it's a once in a lifetime moment for them, just like the players usually. So
I may or may not have witnessed people having too much fun back in the 80s, but I sat next to Russell Cross's mom during a state championship basketball game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I don't know. I think we're out of things to talk about. We could probably, I don't know. We could probably find other things to talk about, but I'm not
sure.
Let's
get let's get a bracket. We'll share a bracket.
Yeah, maybe check our Facebook page. We get those things posted.
We're gonna post them for everyone to see.
Well, we don't have to do that. I don't know.
Okay.
We could post our scores round by round. Who's ahead?
All right. That's good. Because So are we gonna let the play-ins happen? So these have become official on like Wednesday.
Yeah,
Thursday morning.
The way I've always handled it is that when it comes to brackets, it doesn't actually start until Thursday. That's
because I may pick Indiana a lot further than I would pick Wyoming.
Well, you gotta,
I'm just saying.
You gotta leave your heart out of it, I think, a little bit. But
I'm doing head picks here, buddy.
I don't know if anybody's heart would lead them to pick Wyoming for any college basketball either. So.
I had a good friend from college from Wyoming. I spent a week out there one summer. Beautiful country.
Well, I'm sure it is. It is.
Incredible.
It just doesn't. It's just when I think of college basketball, it's just University of Wyoming.
Hey, Google the name Finis Dimbo. Back in the mid to late 80s, he was a stud for the Wyoming Cowboys. Finis Dimbo.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you,
I remember watching him play back then. Probably mid 80s.
yeah, it's a little before my time.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm trying to, I try to be educational with you, Whitey, not just
I know the
not just
first thing
not
I'll be
just
doing
inspirational. I try to offer education as well.
as soon as I log off, that'll be the first thing I go check out. All right, let's let people go.
No, you're going to see if Freddie Freeman has moved to California is the first thing you're going to check.
Well, if they can't do what it takes to keep them, then that's
I just hope the Cardinals sign somebody I know.
So far it's supposed to have been this crazy frenzy of activity once the lockout was officially over, and so far
Sonny Simmons is the biggest name that's been signed.
Sonny Gray getting traded to the Twins is probably the biggest thing that happened so far. Yeah, fun day to be a Reds fan, I would imagine, knowing that they're just going to keep trading away anybody that might cost more than a nickel. Besides maybe
the A's. The A's sent the Mets have like a great pitching staff now.
Yeah, well, they'll listen.
Hope they win 1-0.
It's the Mets, man. They will figure out a way to mess it up. I could go on and on, but team wins the World Series.
Just be glad you didn't buy Tom Brady's football last night.
Yeah, the team wins. Listen, I'm just going to close it on this. If the team wins the World Series and they have a face of the franchise that could retire there, they should just pay what it takes to keep them there, because nobody is going to be burning down doors. Nobody's going to be rioting if you don't win the World Series in the next 5 or 6 years. So just keep the guy there. Just keep.
Unless they're wanting money until they're age 50, like Albert Pujols, then you can let them walk.
Well, I don't know. That's a little bit different story. Albert Pujols can still hit lefties. He
may finish. There's talk of him coming back as a DH, which that's like the nostalgia show, and then we can run him and Molina and Wainwright out there for us ovation.
If you can find a way to work him in where he only faces lefties, he had a 900 OPS against lefties last year. He only needs like 21 home runs to get to 700. It would be
Can we have
around it alone would be so profitable for some team.
Can we have the runner at first base like Babe Ruth had his last year? So when he hit it, he stopped at first, and then the other guy took off.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, you can't play him on the field at all.
No.
And even playing only against lefties, I don't know if he can hit 21 home runs in a season. So anyway, all right, long enough. We're stopping. We're done.
All right.
We will be, I don't know, we're going to be back next week. We talked about maybe.
We'll have to talk about it. We may have to take a week off for spring break.
Yep. Might be all right.
My daughter's in California. My daughter's flying out to California. I'm not sure why. I was never asked permission. So
I don't know. Your kids are old enough. I don't know that they could start doing what they want and face. I guess I don't know. What are you going to do? Ground them?
Point. Hey, I get to go visit her in Indiana when she comes back.
Sounds exciting. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun, and that'll be great for you. All right, take it easy, Mike.
See you, Whitey.
Later.